Time now for the Easy Choice presented by Geico. The Bears, one of two teams with a choice to make in the opening round of the NFL draft because they have multiple picks along with the Arizona Cardinals. So the Bears get the first pick by way of Carolina last year. They'll also pick at number 9. Meanwhile, the Cards will pick at 4 and 27, a pick that they acquired from Houston. And with the Combine kicking off next week, they will have a lot of attention on those top prospects. Let's talk about the upcoming draft as we welcome in our guys from the With the First Pick podcast. We got Rick Spielman looking snazzy with the glasses and the suit. We've also got Ryan Wilson snazzy in a suit. I don't think I've ever seen Ryan in a suit before. This is a good look for you guys. Let's talk about the draft, though, with the Bears. We know the conversation surrounding Chicago is what to do with Justin Fields. We've seen a lot of interest drawn on Justin Fields. So, Ryan, I want to start with you first here. What should be the strategy, especially with it kind of leaning towards Caleb Williams being that top pick in Chicago?
Haley, good to see you. I almost wore my turtleneck because I know it would drive Rick crazy, but I'll save that for another episode. I just went with a casual tie and jacket look here. And, Rick, I love your guy Bear there. But in terms of Chicago Bears, what are they going to do? And it feels like Justin Fields is going to move on at some point, and it's going to have to happen before the draft, which is 65 days from where we are sitting. And then that begs the question, all right, what happens at number 1? You could take Caleb Williams there, but part of you wonders if there's going to be a lot of teams interested in moving up for Caleb, and I think there will be, in which case, how far can the Bears move down and still get a quarterback if that's what they want to do? Unless they sign one in free agency, if they move him from Justin, they're absolutely going to have to do that. Or perhaps how far do they move down and still stay in the sweepstakes for Marvin Harrison Jr., for whoever the quarterback ends up being. And then they pick again at 9, Haley, and I think depending on what happens at the top of the draft and how far they trade down, they can circle back and get an edge rusher to book in with Montez Sweat, or they can get a wide receiver there if they don't get Marvin Harrison Jr. With one of those top 2 or 3 or 4 picks. And Rome Odunze is a popular selection for a number of reasons. I think Malik Neighbors will be gone there. But whatever you do, you're going to have at least 2 first-round picks, and you're going to have to be in the playoff conversation next year in the NFC North because you're going to be out of excuses once you get the quarterback, once you surround him with all those players from the draft capital. Now you got to go out and win if you're Matt Eberflus.
Yeah, Haley, I haven't seen a knitted tie since the 8th grade that Ryan's sporting today on this show, so please go back to the turtleneck. It's a much better look than that knitted tie that you're wearing and the horrible Windsor knot that you tried to pulling off right now. So apologize for that in my fashion statement, but it's hard for me to focus on what we're trying to talk about here. But let's get back to football, okay? They have to take Caleb Williams because I think he's a generational type talent. If they're going to move on from Justin Jefferson, we're probably going to know that at the Combine because you're going to start hearing some rumblings about where he can potentially land if they're trying to move him. If they don't move him and go with Justin Fields, they're going to have to get ready to pay that contract extension. They have a lot of cap room, over $70 million in cap space. I do agree if you can get Caleb Williams, go down to number 9. If you don't land an edge pass rusher in free agency like a Danielle Hunter or anyone of that nature that are out there in the open market, then get your edge rusher, and I would go with Dallas Turner or Jared Verse.
Hey, before we move on to the Cardinals, Rick, I just want to ask you, with that first-round pick, I know Caleb Williams, generational talent. Is there a scenario, though, that makes sense for the Bears in which they trade away that number 1 pick?
Boy, you've had 2 number 1 picks in a row. And you traded away last year. You passed on, Bryce Young didn't have the year everybody thought he was going to have, but you passed on C.J. Stroud. So do you do that for a second year in a row not to get a generational quarterback? Who's to say if they go down that they're going to still get a good quarterback, the quality of Caleb Williams? I think they have to take it because I don't believe they'll be picking number 1 overall again for a while. But they control the whole offseason of the NFL. They control free agency with the amount of cap space they have. They control the draft with the number 1 and number 9 overall pick. So how can you pass on a talent like this? If they don't get this right, it's going to set the Bears back another decade.
All right, we'll keep that in mind. Let's talk about the Cardinals, a team that has finished, 4 and 13 over the last 2 seasons. And it's kind of funny because when I think about the Cardinals, I almost forgot that they played football last year because of just how irrelevant they were. So, Ryan, to fix that problem, you've got multiple first-round picks here. How do they get back to being relevant?
Haley just taking shots at the Arizona Cardinals.
I'm not the only
Arizona
one
Cardinals
thinking
fans.
It, okay?
Just so we're clear, Haley's a Cowboys fan, and she's still a little bitter about how the season ended.
I am
leave it at
bitter.
that,
You're
okay?
right. So bitter.
And I'm also bitter that Rick and I's YouTube channel, How to Tie Ties, has not yet taken off. So that'll be next on the to-do list, Haley. In terms of the Arizona Cardinals and being relevant, how does that happen? Well, it helps to have 2 first-round picks. It helps that you got your franchise quarterback back in Kyler Murray. And Jonathan Gannon has done a fantastic job under the radar in year one, making that team competitive, much more competitive than a lot of people thought. Kyler came back towards the second half of the season, played well enough to make you think that he's your guy going forward. And then the question becomes, how do we surround Kyler with players on both sides of the ball to help this team win? If you're sitting there at 4 and these quarterbacks go off the board 1, 2, and 3, Haley, guess who's staring you in the face? Marvin Harrison Jr. And they can let Kyler Murray turn that card in because he will be so excited to have a wide receiver like Marvin Harrison Jr. on the roster. Then they pick at the bottom of the first round. They can go offensive tackle here if they want to book in their offensive tackle from a year ago, and Paris Johnson Jr., who started every game at right tackle. You go edge rusher. They need some help along the defensive line, maybe interior defensive line. There's going to be a lot of options. You can even trade up or trade down depending on what the market is when you get around to that second first-round pick. And they have an opportunity to be competitive next year. And by competitive, I mean win more games than they lose and have a chance to sniff the playoffs. That's a great place to be going into year 2 with the coach and Jonathan Gannon, and knowing that your quarterback, Kyler Murray, should be better in 2024 than he was in 2023.
Yeah, Ryan, I'm going to agree with you on the first part of it. If Marvin Harrison Jr. is there, he is relevant. And Haley, I hate to say it, will make the Arizona Cardinals relevant. I think that my comparison to him coming out was Larry Fitzgerald Jr. I think this guy is a future Hall of Famer, and he'll make a major impact if he ends up with the Arizona Cardinals. On the back end of the first round, I think that they're going to go defense. Jonathan Gannon's a defensive coach. He had the Philadelphia defense humming when they got to the Super Bowl a year ago. They need edge pass rushers. There's 2 things. I could look. They have about $45 million in cap space going into this offseason. I think with Hassan Reddick potentially on the trading block, it sounded like Philly was willing to move him, that they go after him potentially in a trade, or they go get, and Ryan, hold on to your seat, I think Latu is going to fall because of the medical and falls right into their lap where they're picking at the bottom of the first round.
So we just saw Ryan's mock draft for the Cardinals there. So I kind of want to jump forward here and have a little bit of fun because Rick, you have experience drafting. What'd you say?
I'm here.
Okay.
That's me.
Rick, Ryan, the names always get me mixed up there. But regardless, you have experience drafting multiple picks in the first round here with the Vikings. So we're taking a look at your first round picks over the course of your time as GM with the Vikings. We asked Ryan Wilson to grade those picks. So I'm going to give Ryan first word here. Ryan, just kind of talk us through the grading here on what Rick was able to do with the Vikings.
Haley, you may know this from just talking to Rick through your television screen there, but he can be peculiar at times, and he's not big on pluses and minuses when it comes to grading. Weird, but whatever. I gave pluses because I thought these are some really good draft trade-ups. Harrison Smith's going to be a Hall of Famer. That's a great job in 2012. 2013, 3 first-round picks. I think Rick had to leave the press conference to go announce the 3rd first-rounder in that draft class in 2013. Certainly some players there. I would have given the Teddy Bridgewater, Anthony Barr trade-up an A or higher, but Teddy got hurt, unfortunately, and then finally Justin Jefferson, the 5th wide receiver drafted, and he's the best wide receiver, not only in that class, one of the best wide receivers in the league. He's about to get paid. That's an automatic A+. Rick, it turns out, is pretty good at his job, Haley.
Hence why I'm sitting here right now doing this show, because I was so good at my job as a general manager. The one thing I am sure of is I am better dressed than the way Ryan Wilson comes on these shows at times, even with my new Island shirts that I got for Christmas this year that I'm sporting through the With the First Pick podcast as we get ready for the 2024 NFL draft. But
between you,
I give a lot of credit to, I give a lot of credit to our scouts and our coaches. We were able to get some pretty good players, guys that really helped us win a lot of ball games. I've had my share of misses as well in the first round, but when you are able to hit on some of the guys that we were fortunate enough to hit on, it keeps you in a job longer, for over 17 years with the Minnesota Vikings. Now I get to pass on my wisdom and encouragement to Ryan Wilson, not only on the podcast, but on the way he dresses as well.
Man, Ryan Wilson, how lucky are you to have such a mentor? Guys, before we let you go, we obviously had Pete Prisco on the show a couple segments ago, and we were talking about the Vikings and the franchise tag. And Rick, we wanted you to hear what Pete Prisco had to say about some of your drafting. Take a listen.
Well, here's the other side of the equation. Kirk Cousins supposedly wants guaranteed money again, fully guaranteed contract. Well, the idiot GM that gave it to him the first time now works here, so he's not going to get that this time around.
Your reaction to hearing Pete Prisco?
Yeah, no, he would say that if I was sitting next to him, too. So, Pete, God forbid, I don't know what that outfit was he had on today, but he just walked off of South Beach with that pink shirt. It was like a little too much for a man his age. But Pete has his opinions, and we disagree on a lot of things. The only thing he doesn't understand is when a franchise quarterback is out on the market and there's more than one team willing to give him a guaranteed contract, you do what's best, and it was best for us to go sign Kirk Cousins when we had an opportunity to. So there, Pete.
There, Pete. And Pete had the full South Beach look going on, the buttons open, the chain hanging. What a day it has been for Fitz here on CBS Sports HQ. Hey, guys, make sure if you want more Rick, Ryan banter, tap into the With the First Pick podcast. They just dropped a new mock draft where they had to trade away the top 10 picks before they could then pick. So very interesting take on the draft. Make sure you tap in on that QR code.